as we think about the challenges that we face in society today, how do we rise above those things? And what advice would you have for everyone who is listening or who will watch the replay on living boldly, proclaiming God's kingdom, whether in the workplace, whether in the marketplace, wherever we find ourselves? So we look forward to hearing all you have to share with us. Thank you.
Okay. Again, thank you for the opportunity. And I feel like what we have today is such a pungent, really profound topic. And it's something that we should continue to explore even beyond this conference in our personal life. I enjoyed listening to Trailblazer, Dr. B. I listened to Mofoluwaso Ilevbare and I think it's my sister Fumilola Asha. I listened to them speak and I just felt like, okay, I'm in the right place. I'm right at home. I love the energy. I love the direction of the conversation, and big congratulations on this very, epoch-making launch of Living Boldly. When we wrote my last bio, I had written 16 books, but as at now, I've written 20 books. So I definitely enjoy the power of writing and just the enormous impact that it has a capacity to create. And writing offers you the opportunity to birth legacy so that beyond direct contact with you, your wisdom can continue to transform lives. 3 things will stand out in this material moment about living boldly. And the first is to have a distraction-free, vision-driven life. So that SWOT analysis thing, when you're sort of trying to make sense of, in a comprehensive manner, of the possibilities and the obstacles that could stand against a visionary pursuit or a business, you sort of do this very popular, maybe overused framework called the SWOT analysis, and you would analyze the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. So you're sort of checking for the internal endowments that this business or this vision has and can help you thrive. You're looking out for those internal limitations that you may have. And then you're also now checking for the opportunities, which are like environmental assets that are present in, around or within the environment of that vision that the visionary can leverage or the organization can leverage. And it could be trends and mega trends. And then you're also looking at the threats. What are the ongoing limitations that could be regulatory, logistic-based, or changes even with a disruption such as we've had, and you're sort of making recommendations or drawing a decision-making matrix from this analysis. I find this to be true sitting with, or I don't know if what I've said makes sense. Let me keep speaking, and I'm sure that I will draw a line. But sitting with visionaries, one of the things that fascinates me a lot is how many times what people are limited by and what becomes like the big obstacle standing in their way to accomplishing the God-given vision is not so much to do about their internal limitations, their internal weaknesses, but oftentimes connected to self-imposed, borrowed shackles because they were too busy looking at what other people are doing and getting overwhelmed by what they didn't have a business being overwhelmed with. So imagine feeling like you're not worthy because somebody else seems to be doing at scale something that you want to begin to do. How is that even meant to be a business? Like, we were never designed to operate this way. And I've never gotten it because one of the greatest gifts that my father gave me from when I was really young was such a strong sense of personal acceptance and just being okay, right? With being me. And because I've seen how it's radically impacted my life, I have made it a big, big priority of my parenting goal to really invest that sense of assurance and sense of acceptance and just being so in harmony and congruence with your inner core and your higher self, that you're too busy pursuing a compelling image of who you could be. And it's this, I wouldn't even call it competition, but it's this progressive elaboration from who you are into who you are, if you see what I mean. You know, so that, I feel like this is big deal. I talk about it every time. I preach about it. I cry about it. I write about it. I pray for, you know, my proteges about it. And my husband says it, that they were like, this definitely got to be your ace. It's my superpower. I am so distraction free on purpose. Like, I don't get time, you know, I don't get time. They look anybody business, because I tell you what, even if you have the highest degree of focus, moving in the direction that God shows you for your life, you're still going to get to the other side of eternity where our Father is materially. And you're going to be like, there were things I could still have been for the kingdom, right? Because you're embodying eternity, and time is just a fragment. And so imagine if you were then so distracted looking at every other person's business and drawing conclusions about who you are because of them. So a distraction-free, future-forward, vision-driven life empowers you to live boldly. The reason this is the type of boldness that you deserve, because there is a boldness that could be drawn from competition. And what I mean with that is, it's a certain type of success that doesn't necessarily produce significance. Meaning that if you lived your life always looking at what others are doing or trying to prove a point, you know, to those who said you weren't going to amount to much, and you lived your life that way, competition driven, trying to conquer the next territory and make everybody in your industry know that you're the best thing there, you may attain success, but you are still going to be on this permanent race of looking out for what new records to break out there, and you never have rest of soul. And that kind of success doesn't move you into significance. What moves you into a life of significance is when you are utilizing your highest endowments for those that you have been sent to, producing the greatest degree of impact um, based on the vision that you've been handed. So living boldly is about living your life on purpose. Living boldly is about daring new territories based on a recognition of the new possibilities that are opening up within your heart. Living boldly is overcoming your fears, getting beyond the limitations and the pains of your past. Living boldly is reaching for your higher self, that place where you are all love, you are all agape, you are all compassion, you are all purity, right? So there is just that journey where you're becoming more and more like God. And that takes courage. And that's the desire of God for us. So it's going to be a first for me, especially because we're in such a distraction-laden, fast-paced, media-burdened generation. So for me, the first thing here that I see radically limiting the ability of both men and women, but more especially women, to thrive, to access a dimension of freedom, and then to enjoy the things that matter the most to them, right? Because my idea of a true life of success and significance is when you're thriving at the level of income, impact, influence, without trading the things that matter to you, like spirituality, like your family, right? I don't want to succeed at the expense of my family. I mean, I don't. Nothing is that deep, right? So I feel like if we can get this, if we can reorganize our lives and our hearts in a way that is not constantly judging ourselves by other people's matrix, or judging ourselves by societal expectations and those labels. And of course, that draws from identity, and we could go on and on about that. I really believe it's already living boldly. So people should grab their copy and they're going to crack, that conversation. But right within this first thing I'm sharing, and I'm going to have to keep quiet on in a second or 10, is really finding you. The moment you have this growing evolutionary recognition of your place in the world, your place in the world is not going to be taken away. If you weren't needed, God is too much of an intentional investor to put you on the map. You're here because you've got a space and a place that matters and is important, and you can focus on that. And the moment you start to do that, it will lead me to the second thing. The moment you crack this, it will lead me to the second thing, and it's that your matrix is going to change. If you're going to lead boldly, you need a matrix of significance that is bigger than numbers, right? You need, so, and I'm just hoping that I get this out the simplest. Yeah, but the second thing here is a non-number matrix for life. And what I generally mean with this is, what I find is that so many people are unable to track growth and to determine what they want to commit themselves to, because they draw conclusions about how success looks from the point of view of numbers. So if I'm sent on an assignment that reaches just 20 people, right? You're going to have you're going to have some visionaries who would have a problem with that, because there's just this lie that has really been sold to our generation that impact has to be in the millions, right? And every work has to be awarded and rewarded. And you've got to become popular for something, or else you don't have a strong brand. And it's all jargons, really. It's all jargons. Some of the most impactful thought leaders that have gone ahead of us and have really impacted, the next generation, are not even on Instagram. They don't even have a social media following, right? So I'm going to narrow this and give it maybe a bit more sense by saying this, especially if you have a relationship with God. To live boldly is to live by conviction. Maybe that's the better way to put it. But I really wanted to highlight that as you live your life by conviction, meaning you believe this is what I'm supposed to do, this is where I'm supposed to go, this is the path I'm supposed to pursue, these are the opportunities I'm supposed to take, these are the doors I'm supposed to shut, these are the relationships I'm supposed to nurture, these are the friendships I have to give up on for the next level. This is the architecture of life, right, that I have to embrace. The moment you start to crack those things, and I tell you what, it's not rocket science. You don't get a chance to say something like, DDK, I don't know how I'm going to know all those things. There is a compass within your spirit. And the more you deepen your relationship with God, He seeks to lead you. And it doesn't have to be like spirit cocoa the way it's for some. Some people are going to be like, on the 3rd of March, 1844, the Lord walked into my room and He told me, right? But for some of you, you just know when you start to have that unease. How do people get into dis-ease? They don't deal with their unease. Accumulated unease leads to dis-ease. And then you become so disempowered. To live boldly is to live empowered. And the way you live empowered is to live by convictions. When you deny your convictions, you get disempowered, right? So to live boldly is to live by your convictions, to live by the inner compass within your spirit, regulating you and moving you. And let me tell you what, every single one of us will get an opportunity in our lives to be called on a path of very high resistance, at least with something in your life, where it's unpopular, it's uncommon, even your spouse or your parents will be like, you're crazy. Your own is too much. What's that one again, right? I've turned down big opportunities, even with what was in line with my vision, right? And and the moment we start to get into this conversation around convictions, you find that it's not surface level stuff, because you can have a vision that God gave you and opportunities come in the line of that vision, yet those opportunities are not for you in that season of your life. And I've had to give up on those just because of conviction, and it empowered me. I love how one of our trailblazers is saying it's Kemi Olurimade. I love it. It's about simplifying your life. Living boldly will lead you to live by convictions. And when you live by convictions, convictions define your life and also refines your life, right? And it goes ahead to confine your life. Your convictions also confine your life. Your convictions draw lines that you don't go beyond because they're not just your stuff, right? So to be bold is to not fall, not to fall to the pressure of what is happening around you and what people determine to believe success should look like, but to rise to that compass, that assignment, that instruction that you're receiving, and to be true to it. It will favor you in the days that it will favor you. Sis, I've come into extraordinary stuff by living, by conviction. Things that I didn't even apply for, I didn't ask for. How would I have tried to walk my way to consulting for presidents of African countries on public policy? It's not even the most popular part of my work, but because I continue to follow the compass and I continue to follow and lead by conviction, huge doors again and again. And just also because I'm operating a distraction-free life, I'm not under pressure to announce anything, right? Your life is going to be better on the inside than it appears, as against the other way, which is what I find with many people. By the time they sit with me in coaching calls, I worry. I'm like, how can you look better than you really are? So yeah, I mean, living bold is definitely living by convictions. That's really important. The third would be around not fixating on who you are, but recognizing that there are dimensions of who you are that will never be released until you choose to grow your character. So I hear people say things like, this is how I am. You've got to understand it's my personality. And I love to say that your personality is simply a down payment. It's just an installment given to you for your purpose, for your assignment in life. But there are things that you need that you don't have. And there are things that you have that you don't need, right? So living boldly would also be exploring the possibilities of your human experience, exploring the possibilities of your human potential by refusing to fixate on who you are today, but deciding to grow your character and stretch yourself into places you've never been in your thinking, in your mindset, in your response to people, in your personal diligence and intentional life design, right? So I've coached thousands of people by the grace of God since 2014. And it's possible for you to just deceive yourself because you're getting all this hashtag, you transform my life, hashtag something goals, hashtag you're my hero, hashtag you're a general, and whatever other funny stuff that are out there. But I've found that my biggest victories have always been connected to seasons when I recognize as the Lord brings me on that limelight of his truth. And I start to say, Debola, these are still areas where you are undone. These are areas where you have to become better. Do you see? And when you personally insist on becoming a better version of yourself, so that you are of greater utility, of greater humility, of greater effectiveness, of greater productivity, right? And it's always the branches that are pruned that are able to bear more fruit. So if you want to stay relevant and be on this progressive path where you're getting better and doing better and producing better for the world, you also then need to definitely, and it takes living boldly. In fact, that's maybe the biggest definition of living boldly for me. It takes a lot of courage to be true to yourself and to be upfront about the work that still needs to get done in you, regardless of what people think about you, right? Those would be three things that I believe if we started to pay more attention to, would definitely be helpful. And for the third one, allow me to just mention that a secret for trailblazers is the willingness to take feedback, whether it's in your career, your business, your marriage, even from your prodigies. The willingness to take feedback is a game changer that unveils, it's the power of radical candor. It unveils layers and layers of you, and you step into finer dimensions of your human capacity and potential.
Wow. Wow. Amazing, amazing, amazing. You know, DDK, I'm still, if you notice, you know, I've been taking notes because you are, I don't think we have even scratched the surface. So, but if I just try to break down a little bit of what you've said, I think one of the greatest things which I find, and you mentioned it in our time, is this measuring success by numbers, by following, by, you know, the presence and the pictures and what you look online. But you said something profound, which is, it's about, are you better on the inside than on the outside? Because if your life does not reflect the purpose of God and his intent for you on the outside, then who are we deceiving? This whole fake it till you make it on whose standards? On whose standards and whose life are we living? And, you know, I realize that sometimes in the work we do, the expectations that people have of us sometimes make some of us fear and kind of just not focus on what God has called you to do. You said something significant. It's not about the number. What has God called you to do? Who has he called you to? And are you courageous enough to let him strip the layers that he does not need in your purpose and in your life? And it can be painful. From what you're sharing, DDK, it can really be painful. Sometimes when you see opportunities and it seems like that's what the world would expect you to go for. But God is saying, no, my child, this is not what I've called you to do. Stay in the place of quietness. Stay in the place of service. Stay in the place of learning. This is how you live boldly. It's not about the outward thing. It's about, let me finish the inner work. You talked about the inner compass. How do we get up every morning and feel like our life is being navigated the way God wants it to be, rather than focusing on, oh, this is what my mom wants, oh, this is what society wants, oh, this is what is expected of me? Because sometimes it can be, people can misconstrue the meaning of boldly, living boldly, and think, oh, it's about confidently coming out every day. You're there on social media, or you're the one everybody can see. But you're right, some of the biggest world game changers, they don't have a social media account. They don't even have time for social media. Let's be honest. When God has called you to do something, you focus on, you don't even have time to start checking what is that person doing, what is this person doing, what's going on that side. And living a life that is distraction-free takes discipline. And from the little we see of you, DDK, you know, even the little we see online, we know that there is a lot that goes on the background. One of the questions I get a lot from especially professional women is this part of, oh, I feel there is more. I feel there is more. I feel I've been called to do more, but I just feel like there is so much going on and I don't know how to start, where to start. You know, you talked about the SWOT, you talked about the compass. Can you speak a bit about how do you stay distraction free in your own life? Because we know you also have a very busy life, but you've got a mandate as well. And you translate that mandate in different expressions. So how do you manage to stay distraction free from all the soothsayers and all the people who want to, oh, we love you, we adore you, this one, that one? How do you manage to keep yourself in that place where God has called you to be? And how do you know when to say no to certain things? Thank you for I know I said a lot, but I trust that you'll be able to answer.
28 questions. I'm kidding. But I mean, I feel like those are very powerful questions that even beyond now is something we should still individually look at, explore, trust the Lord to give us light about. For me, the first thing about a distraction-free life, as I see it, is not even first in the schedules and the systems that have to be created, and we can speak to that a bit. Is really first about knowing who I am. Because how distraction happens is when we are on the lookout for something and we don't know where to find it, right? So you're checking too many places. So distraction, as I think about it, would be everything else that you are thinking about, doing, going for, accommodating in your life that are not aligned to moving you in the direction of God's higher or God's highest purpose for you, right? So it means that if I don't know what is God's desire for me in the now, right? I'm going to be unable to move in the direction of that purpose. And if I'm unable to move in the direction of that purpose, I'm going to be searching everywhere else. And that's how distraction happens. So what I mean, sis, is that there are people who are distracted, but don't even know it. They may be listening and be like, well, my life is full, but I'm not distracted. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm working on. But in this context, before even the lower definition of distractions to mean this is what I'm trying to do, but it looks like so many things are coming at me. In the bigger context of a life of purpose, everything that we are thinking about, allowing to consume our minds, things that we're doing and committing to and spending on, relationships we are investing in that are not aligned to helping us attain that purpose and achieve results with the things that count the most based on what God has determined and delineated as our focus in every season is distraction. So as far as that is concerned, it will mean the first thing that moves us into a distraction-free life is a growing recognition of who we are in God, who God is in us, and what he needs us to do. And so it immediately leads us to the second thing, which is about being quiet enough to hear. If you cannot hear, you are not going to know with certainty what a season is about. And I'll speak to that immediately after this. So you've got to be quiet enough to hear. You've got to make a practice. And I know that people will be like, DDK, I don't know how to hear. Well, if you don't know how to hear, you're going to drop everything else and know how to hear. Is that serious? Spiritual intelligence is the greatest competence for the 21st century visionary, right? I'm unabashed about it. It's not, so you people like, I really don't know how to have tried. No. It's what I don't know what matters in the person's life. Let's say, for example, if they say, if you don't use these drugs, you're going to die in 2 weeks. You're not going to be like, it has a funny taste, so I'm not going to use it. Or I've really tried, but I usually forget. You will set the alarm, you will use it. You will organize your life around it. Or your boss calls you and says, you are just one step from being director for West Africa. But there's this certification that you don't have, and it's going to be the game changer. Hey, Charlie, you won't sleep or you will write that certification. Right? So I wonder when people say things like, I don't know how to hear God, but you're still going about. You have mind though. You would reorganize your life. So if you're listening to me and you're struggling with clarity, you reorganize your life to make room for it. You'd read Following God's Plans for Your Life. You read Following God's Plans for Your Life, Kenneth E. Hagin, Hello Tomorrow, Dr. Cindy Trim, Believe Bigger, Marshawn Evans. You sit with those. Vision Code by Oleg. I'm currently reading it. That's my coach. You do whatever you use. You ask Trailblazer Fofo, you'd be like, what helped you gain clarity about who you are and where you're supposed to be? You crack it. You stay there till you crack it. And you find your own portal, because God speaks to us in different ways. And it takes recognition, observation, keen observation to be like, this is how I've been led over the last seasons of my life. And you start to think about hearing again. So we've got to hear. The next thing from that point is our lives are broken into seasons. And so it's important that the way we live distraction free is to know the priorities of every new season. And some of these things, they're not like calculus or math. We can't easily just be like 1 + 1. But let me mention 3 things that can start to highlight that a season is changing in your life. Number 1, dissatisfaction. You are all of a sudden like, I don't know, it feels like something's missing. I'm getting bored. I feel like there's more, and you're just restless. A season could be changing. So you want to sit and begin to ask the important questions and trust the Lord to give you light. Number 2, you are losing relationships or gaining new relationships. People are just, or new people are coming and noticing you, reaching out, you're doing a great work. A season might be changing. Number 3, you are picking a new burden, a new thought, and it's not leaving your mind. Something you believe you could be doing, that could be brand new or an extension of what you've been doing. And I know I'm saying so much, it's because the questions are just, it's too deep, too wide. So, so I'm trying to answer, how do we live distraction free? And I've said number one, to be distraction free is to live your life cutting out everything that is not aligned to what God wants you to be investing in and doing right now. And then we said number two, you've got to quieten your life to be able to hear. You make that room. You know, I've got Mondays as my retreat days. It's sacrosanct. I try to keep it that way. Just so that I can be quiet to hear. And then number three, descent seasons. The moment you catch a new season and you start to see the priorities you should focus on in that season, then go ahead and do that. Now, let me talk about three more like practical everyday things that can really help you stay distraction free. Number one is to actually take pragmatic steps with your social media. Take very pragmatic steps. Now, the interesting first I will share with you, I just discovered there's such a feature and I've wondered about it for so long until someone told me it exists. I didn't know about the mute feature for long, right? I didn't know. I was like, the moment I caught it, I was like, this is brilliant, because I would always try to see how to help people who work with me, you know, get through that thing. And what I mean with this is, one of the greatest things that will distract you is the natural tendency to compare yourself with other people. It's natural to all of us because God put in you a desire to matter. And He's the one that put it there. So yeah, and actually it's the people whose lives are moving in a direction similar to your calling that will get your attention the most. It's what can stress you the most, actually, right? And you're just gonna be like, see Fofo, see what she's doing here in my life, right? That can happen. So don't stress your muscles that much and be trying to be like, I will not compare myself. Oh, why am I feeling like this? If a person's success is distracting you so much that you're feeling messed up on the inside, don't unfollow. I used to say unfollow because I didn't know there was that feature, but mute them. Now that I know it exists, I teach it a lot. Instagram, thank you. This is a big help for a lot of people. Mute them. Don't stress about it. It could just be a season you're in. You can't deal with that. It affects people a lot. So don't just mute them. They're doing amazing stuff. But if it's getting at you, just use the mute. Good. The second thing is regulate how often you are there. I use social media primarily to promote the divine assignments God has put in my heart. And then I step back again and I just operate my cocoon for a while. But that doesn't have to be you. But find what works for you and really regulate your time there. There is a whole psychology that you're unaware of. There's a science to what makes people get addicted to social media, right? You could watch Social Dilemma. I'm sure that it could offer some insights as well. So, I mean, you could have your time for when you want to get in there, etc. or not. Number three is to actually do a time audit for like 2 weeks. Really log in what you're spending your time on regularly. For those of you who are like, I'm really busy, like, you don't know how full my life is. I don't have a caregiver. I run a career. You know, it's a 9 to 9, all of that. Really log in on a daily basis for 2 weeks. And you might find that there are places where you are not stewarding your time excellently, and you can convert that to something that matters. The final thing I would say on this is you are going to reflect how you're spending your time just in 1 year. By the end of a year, you're going to look like where you put your time the most. So every 20 minutes counts, every 15 minutes counts. If you want to start reading and listening to podcasts the first 30 minutes of the day, it may look like it's nothing much, but in 6 months, you're going to be a way wiser person for just that simple decision.
Thank you so much, DDK, and thank you for taking the time. You are a teacher. It's very obvious you teaching us and bringing the principles out in little bits, and I'm sure that everyone on the line has been absorbing most of the things you've shared. you're right, it takes time and there is a lot to process in what you've said, but I believe that they are the starting points and hopefully the catalyst for some of the people who are listening right now who need to get into that place of purpose, who need to get into that place of understanding their identity in God and allowing God to transform us and really from the inside out, because that's where it
Yes.
starts. It starts from the inside, you know, and being able to take those courageous steps when God says, separate yourself from among them. I'm sending you to a different place, or I need to
Mm.
change your name. And there's that struggle that Jacob was having. Every single one of us, there is a yearning in our hearts that God has positioned there for a purpose. And may we have the wisdom to understand the times and the seasons and be obedient enough to follow God's leading for our lives. So thank you so much for sharing. Someone was asking in the chat box, the book from Kenneth Hagin. I know there are many videos he's done and many books also around how to be led by the Spirit, how to hear from God. So if you just go online, you will find a
It's
lot of
follow
those books.
for
Yes,
your life.
pop again, please say it again.
God's plan for your life. I'm typing
Yeah.
it.
Thank you. Thank you. Please help us type it in the chat box. They also asked about the vision code you talked about just now, the author as well. You know, it's important to learn and to read because those are all part of our development. You know, how to hear from God. That's another one by Joyce Meyer as well. So there are many of those books that are available out there. So let's see if we have one or two more questions for DDK. I know we've taken a bit of her time. Hello Tomorrow, yes, by Dr. Cindy. I've got it somewhere here. I've got it here as well. So Hello Tomorrow, Believe Bigger. Those are fabulous books as well that can help you to shapen what God is calling you to do and position yourself where he directly wants you to be. Using the mute button, I use that a lot as well too, because there are many distractions. Removing notifications. You know, there are times when I even take off certain apps from my phone when I need to focus for a long period of time, and getting help wherever you need it as well. You mentioned social media. What is the purpose of being there? Everyone should be clear on why they're there and what you intend to do from there. So very importantly, many things you have shared, I'm sure on the replay, we will take the learnings. So let me see if there's any other question in the chat box. I think the one we have about how to live boldly and distraction-free with so many great voices and oversensitization around the world. I believe you've done a bit of justice to that question.
Can I
And
say something?
yes,
20
please add
something year
to it.
old. I'm going to drop this book for the 20 something year old. You are in a very sensitive forming stage where you're coming into your own, and is a state that you should enter with authenticity. I'm telling you, being in the university and reading all the books I read, over 100 before I graduated, you know, and really like reading, underlining multiple times. By the time I was graduating, I was sort of really set up to succeed because I saw myself so clearly from God's point of view. And by the time I started having mentors, I could quickly filter stuff. I was filtering based on revelation. So if you say something to me that is just based on how you're perceiving me, I'm quickly able to be like in my heart, well, she's great, but that's not for me. That's not for me. That's just a human template. So I really want to recommend the 40 Days So Fast by Dr. Cindy Trim for this 20-something year old. This is an important time to really start to strengthen who you are, clear out the doubts, the inferiority complex and esteem issues. And this book is so good to help you do that.
Thank you so much, DDK. Thank you. The 40 Days Soul Fast by Dr. Cindy Trim. Go ahead and get that, and I believe you'll be blessed with it. Fumi, we'll take your question as the last one, so we can kind of wrap up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm very great, insightful session. I totally agree around the fact that, you know, that you need to start from the inside and you must do the work. I totally agree with that. My question though is around balancing, you know, and you touched on a bit of it around mentors. So for example, just even listening to you, for some people, is mentorship in terms of how they can get better at what they, as in hearing God. And so while I know that, you know, ultimately you still need to know what God's plan is for you, a lot of people really do struggle. It's something I struggled with for a very long time until I finally, you know, it was almost like something happened and there was like a shifting in my eyes, and then I put in more work and all of that. But sometimes I feel like there's a need to still see some people, even if it's role models in the faith or in people living their life anchored to God's work. So how do you sort of balance, that whole need for mentorship versus doing the work? Because if you're doing it and maybe you're struggling because you're not getting it right, and you really do just need a mentor that you're looking up to as to how they sort of live a certain life, and then that sort of helps you and gingers you until you find that connection. So again, I don't know if I came across with the question, but I was just, that was what was just going on in my head as you kept talking through this.
Fumi, thank you so much. I feel like you asking that, I'm sorry, Fumilola, I shouldn't call people by short versions, except they give me the permission. So Fumilola,
Fumi works.
Okay. So thank you for sharing, because sometimes we speak so passionately and the thoughts could be a bit lopsided, just tilting too much to one side. And I'm truly thankful you asked that question, so we really balance things out. You've got to do the work, but the interesting thing is part of doing the work is setting yourself up in exponential communities. That's actually part of doing the work. So seeking mentorship and leveraging the power of mentors, coaches, role models, guides, leaders is important. However, unlike in the past, and I'll tell you why it's important, maybe I should talk about that first. What a coach or a mentor does for you when they're in their essence and they're good for you is that they help you read the label on the box that you're in. When you are in a box, you're unable to see outside that box. You're unable to read the label on that box. You're unable to say, hey, this is where I am. This is what is keeping me small, because we don't see outside ourselves. So that's what a mentor does for you. It's a great gift. It's a great gift for someone to be able to look beyond you and say, you are brilliant, but you're still struggling with believing in yourself enough. And I hear it coming through your words. And I have mentors. I mean, I was speaking to one of my mentors about Visionary Compass last year when I started to prepare for it. And I was saying, okay, we have this accelerator program, and I was just dumping it down with bits because the thing was just too big in my head. I'm like, why am I even being sent on this assignment? I already have too many things I'm doing. And I said to her, and she was like, girl, go and build a Harvard Business School grade work, because you have it in you to do it. Stop playing small. Stop playing small. Stop thinking about it as one small thing you want to do just because you want to escape, And she was like, maybe there's some fear of success here. So go be big with it. I'm like, yeah, you're talking to me and you're shouting. I hear you. But I definitely left with that commitment. So mentorship is beautiful. The balance we have to put to mentorship today is not to make sentimental decisions. 3 big ways that people choose mentors now. They choose their friend's mentor because their friend is saying great things about that person. They choose the most popular people so that they can add street cred to them. I'm Fofo's prodigy. They're like, what? You're so privileged, the trailblazer? Yeah, that's what people do now. Or number 3, they're choosing a mentor who looks like where they want to go, whereas where they want to go is not where God wants them to go. So imagine you are already on the wrong path, having an ideal future that is not aligned to God's purpose for you. And then you now look for a mentor that will further drag you in the wrong direction. Do you see? And when you finally have a mentor, you still need a filter. And that is why it's better to start to have mentoring relationships. No, not necessarily to start to have. It is better to run mentoring relationships concurrently with personal identity unraveling journey. And I hope I'm not saying too many things. If you're not growing the knowledge of who you are, the likelihood that you'll be templated in the image of somebody else is too high. And that is still unsafe. It's one of the occupational hazards of mentorship. So as you're running that whole mentorship group on one side, don't make them into the middleman between you and God. Please don't do
that. Oh my goodness, amazing, amazing. We'll take one more question, DDK, and this is from Tolulope. Tolulope, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Thank you for waiting.
Thank you so much. My question is, when she was talking, she said our, our dad helped her accept herself when she was younger. So my question to you is, how do we teach our children to accept themselves so that when they grow up, they won't compare themselves to other people? And because I find myself sometimes comparing my children to their friends if I don't see them doing what I expect them to do. So how do I change, or how do I help my children to? Sometimes it's hard because they could be lazy and you're seeing their friends doing everything they ought to do. And then so I'm like, don't you see this person? Don't you see this person? So how do I don't know. It's kind of contrary to what you're saying. So that's my question. If I don't know if
I love it. I love it so much. And yeah, that comparison thing, I think it happens to the best of everyone because you just sometimes want to ginger them to do what's right. Um, it's such a big conversation, but I'm just going to sort of make an attempt at some of the things that I know have worked for me. I feel like the first is connected to a recognition of the children's. I mean, I have really young children and I'm a really young mother. So I can't even come out from any expertise. I've got, my children are between 9 and 4. So, and I'm in my late 30s, so I'm really young. But my answer would be number one, recognizing, seeing your children. Many parents don't see their children. They don't see their children as individuals, as human beings. They just see their children as their possessions, stuff they have, and they just go ahead and tell you what to do. Like, yeah, many parents don't see their children as individual humans with moral agency and their own unique gifts, preferences, as well as capacity for independent thinking, right? With their own emotions and all of that. Parents are just like, Nami born you like, okay, shift and do, yeah. So I see a lot of that, even with young parents. Even with young parents, we still do that a lot too. So the first thing would be to see your children. Take the time to begin to really look at them, observe them, respect them. And as you see them, you start to grow love and respect for their individuality and how they love to be treated, love to be spoken to. For each of my children, if I want something to enter them, I want to say, I want it to enter into the core of their soul, the place that makes them go back privately and have introspection. Because it's at the seventh, between the third and the seventh layer of the soul that we introspect. We don't introspect at the first 2 or 3 levels. That's where we have our defenses. That's where conscious mechanisms are still up. But underneath, at subconscious mechanisms, where it goes inside and it comes back to you, even without you recalling it. That's the subconscious arena. So knowing our children as individuals is, and I hope I'm not saying a lot with this, is what helps us reach them at the subconscious levels of their soul. If you're able to consistently reach your child at the subconscious levels of their souls, you're going to be the primary influence in their lives. Right? Yeah. You're going to do that. And if you don't pay attention, you're going to still do things that touch and hurt them, and they will now build these walls in their mind against you. So how do we reach the subconscious levels so that we can instill positivity and the right values and, the right sense of love, sense of acceptance for themselves, everything? We've got to know them. So if I want to tell my daughter something that I want to enter, I'll use a different strategy than I will use with my son, than I will use with my third girl, for sure. Because, I mean, it's just knowing them. So we can't blanket parenting approach. That's the first thing I already see if we're going to thrive with giving our children self-love. No, that's not the word. If we're going to love them, to embrace themselves. The second thing I find is to use those basic tactics that we are using, and it has radically improved our own self-acceptance of ourselves. And so those affirmations are important on a regular basis. the ones that we make to them and they hear with their outer ear, and the ones that they make over themselves that they hear with their inner ear. So affirmations are really great because when children are between 0 and 11, primarily, psychologically, they are still like really malleable tablets in their souls. It's whatever you put on it consistently that forms, right? Of course, in our own time, psychologists are saying that an 8-year-old is the former 13-year-old. So really from like 1 to 6 is when you seriously begin to put everything you can in, but there's still a lot that can be done even in the years to come. So affirmations are powerful. And then number 3, we have conversations about, we have goal-oriented conversations that have, that empower them to make choices, that have consequences and reward. So exams are coming. I sit with my children and I ask them about their goals for the exams. I want to come first. Why? We talk about it. It's not a competition. And I let them know that they don't need to come first. First, my children know they're accepted beyond their results. What I feel about you will never change because of your results. And then we now talk about their goals. They write out the goals and we paste it. So they tell me their goals and we agree together. If the goals are too low, I sort of nudge them in the right direction that you can do more, you're smarter than that. You know, you set the goals, we talk about what you receive. If you do well, what is on the offer. If you don't do well, this is what it will mean for your academics and all that. And then I ask, what help can I provide to help you study hard and give it your best? And then we continue to remind ourselves, you know, there's nothing to do with anybody else. It's now you. This is the commitment you made, etc. And the final thing is recognizing their gifts and nurturing the gifts. So my son is athletic and we're fine with it. He's the fastest runner in his whole school and we're investing in that. So if we find that specific gifts and we honor and love them for those gifts and we invest in growing the gifts, I feel like you'll make them feel like more of who they are and not try to be somebody else.